Qur'an, chapter 108, Surah al-Kawthar, by Sayyid Qutb, translation by Muhammad al-Amrani. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Verily we have granted you abundance, so pray to your sustainer and sacrifice. Indeed, it is your enemy who is cut off. This surah is entirely devoted to the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, much like Surah ad-Duha and Surah ash-Shah. It is a soothing balm from his sustainer, a promise of endless good, and a stark warning to his enemies of their severance and doom. It guides the Prophet towards the path of gratitude and devotion. Thus, this surah reflects a scene from the early days of the divine message in Mecca, a scene marked by the plotting and harm inflicted upon the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the divine message he bore. It portrays God's tender care for his servant and the small band of believers who followed him, the firm reassurance from God, and his beautiful promise to his Prophet, alongside his dire warning to those who oppose him. Moreover, it illustrates the truth of guidance, goodness and faith, as opposed to the reality of misguidance, evil and disbelief. The first is a vast, overflowing abundance, while the latter is a diminishing and severing loss, though the heedless may think otherwise. It has been narrated that the foolish ones among the Quraysh, those who pursued the Prophet, peace be upon him, with scheming and mockery, seeking to divert the masses from the truth he brought from God, men like Al-As ibn Wa'il, Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt, Abu Lahab, Abu Jahl, and others, used to say of the Prophet, "He is cut off, Abtar," referring to the death of his male children. One of them even said, "Leave him, for he will die without offspring, and his matter will end." This petty and spiteful plot found resonance in the Arab society, which prided itself on many sons, and this base taunt found eager ears among the Prophet's enemies and detractors. Perhaps it pained his noble heart and touched him with sorrow. Thus, this surah was revealed to console his heart, peace be upon him, with a message of divine grace and bounty, affirming the reality of the enduring and expansive good that his sustainer had chosen for him, and the reality of the severance and obliteration destined for his enemies. Indeed, we have granted you al-Kawthar. Kawthar is a term that denotes an abundance beyond measure, a limitless overflow. It is the very opposite of the meaning those foolish ones intended. Indeed, we have granted you a great and overflowing bounty, one that is neither cut off nor diminished. Whoever wishes to seek out this Kawthar that God has granted his Prophet will find it wherever they look or imagine. It is found in his prophethood, in this connection with the great truth, with the true existence, the existence beyond which there is no other, and in reality there is nothing else. What has one lost who has found God? It is found in the Qur'an that was revealed to him. A single surah of it is an endless Kawthar, a fountain whose flow and abundance know no bounds. It is found in the exalted assembly that blesses him, and in the countless voices on earth that bless him, where his name is coupled with God's name in both heaven and earth. It is found in his sunnah that spans the ages across the earth, in the millions who walk in his footsteps, the countless tongues and lips that call upon his name, and the millions upon millions of hearts that love his life and remember him until the day of judgment. It is found in the vast goodness that has overflowed upon humanity across generations because of him and through him. Whether known by those who believe in it or not, yet it has reached them in its outpouring. It is found in so many manifestations that trying to enumerate them is an act of belittling and diminishing them. Indeed, this is the Kawthar whose flow has no end, whose graces are countless, whose meaning is limitless. Hence, The text leaves it undefined to encompass all that is abundant and ever-increasing in goodness. There are narrations that indicate that Kawthar is a river in paradise that the Prophet, peace be upon him, was granted. Yet Ibn Abbas responded that this river is among the vast goodness that the Prophet was given, making it a Kawthar of the Kawthar. This interpretation is more fitting in this context and these circumstances. So pray to your sustainer and sacrifice. After affirming this vast overflowing abundance, contrary to the doubts of the skeptics and the claims of the plotters, the Prophet, peace be upon him, is directed to show gratitude for this blessing with its foremost rite, the rite of sincere devotion to God in worship and orientation, in prayer, and in the sacrificial offering solely for God. So pray to your sustainer and sacrifice. Paying no heed to the polytheists, nor joining them in their worship or in invoking names other than God over their sacrifices. The repeated emphasis on invoking God's name alone over sacrifices, and the prohibition of that over which other names are invoked, or that upon which God's name is not mentioned, indicates this religion's concern with purifying all of life from the remnants and traces of polytheism. It is not only about purifying thought and conscience, it is a religion of unity in every sense and shadow of the word, a religion of pure, unadulterated monotheism. Therefore, it pursues polytheism in all its forms, in all its hiding places, and hunts it down relentlessly, whether it lurks in the conscience, appears in worship, or seeps into the traditions of life, life in all its unity, both seen and unseen. Islam takes it as a whole, undivided, and cleanses it from all traces of polytheism, directing it entirely, clearly and purely toward God alone, as we see in the matter of sacrifices and other acts of worship or life traditions. Indeed, it is your enemy who is cut off. In the first verse it was affirmed that the Prophet is not cut off, but rather the recipient of abundant good. In this verse the plot is turned back upon the plotters, and God confirms that it is not Muhammad who is cut off, but rather those who hate him and wish him ill. And indeed the promise of God came true. Their mention was severed and erased, while the mention of Muhammad, peace be upon him, has continued to grow and rise. We witness today the fulfillment of this noble word in a magnificent and wide-reaching manner, as it was not witnessed by the first hearers. Indeed, faith, truth, and goodness can never be cut off. They are like branches that extend far and wide with deep roots, but disbelief, falsehood, and evil are cut off, no matter how they may seem to flourish and dominate for a time. The measures of God are not the measures of man, yet humans are deceived and deluded, thinking their measures determine the realities of things. Before us is this ever-living, enduring example. Where are those who once uttered their spiteful words against Muhammad, peace be upon him, seeking to sway the hearts of the masses, believing they had silenced him and cut off his path? Where are they now? Where is their mention? Where are their traces? Beside the Kawthar of all things, the Kawthar granted to the one they called cut off. Indeed, the call to God, to truth, and to goodness can never be severed, nor can its caller be cut off. How could it, when it is connected to the living, eternal, everlasting God? Indeed, it is disbelief, falsehood, and evil that are severed, along with their people, no matter how long they seem to endure, or how deep they appear to take root. And God the Almighty speaks the truth while the schemers and plotters are proven false.